Right, this is the 6, 12, 16. I'm just going to explain a little bit about missing person. We have a lot of category of missing person. Normally, you would think that it's kind of only pedophilia kidnappers, and it's done by a pair, a single person, or maybe a circle or ring of people, right? But you also have what you could call political kidnappings. That can be, for example, children kidnapped in a young age in a regime, sold to another country as illegally legalized adoption kids, right? So if you go from United States or EU and say, I want to go up for adoption, the children you might find could be, for example, stolen kids from people in prison in China, in Africa, in Latin America, even in Europe, right? That is a kind of, you could call it black illegal legalized kidnapping or adoption babies, right? You wouldn't know that this child actually had a caring family. Even they might not be in jail, but they're just, being tortured by the regime, the state, the military, the police in their countries, right? Then you have a second category, which is illegally black market sold adoption babies, right? That can be, for example, woman who is prostituted in a bigger town in Latin America, get pregnant, but she don't want to have an abortion, so she carry out the pregnancy, and she gives the child to maybe her person that she owns money, the drug dealer, for example, and he sells it into a kind of illegally network of illegally adopted children. Okay, in this there will sometimes be, of course, because pedophilia is everywhere. Honestly, it's everywhere, and there will be some that is getting from young age into networking, black market networking, right? We also have refugee kids, children from war areas who lost their family, their rights. They have no lawyer, there's no police backing them up. If a mom of two children comes to Europe and she has to pay a mafia for the traveling, she might be forced to give the one child away, or even sometimes the police takes the child and it gets into a pedophilia ring or is sold as an adopted child, right? Then we have the more, you could say, suspicious cases, or all of it suspicious, sorry, but you could say more colorful cases where it's, for example, is a political project or a religious project, where you could, for example, say some religious leaders from sects to a known religion have a so-called more faith in young adults. It's a little bit like you have young brainwashed small soldier, whatever it's red, politic, communism, fascism, Nazism, religion extreme, sect extreme. So in a way you could say that kidnapped children can also end in a kind of environment of strong beliefs in some whatever direction for to become the kind of new soldiers in whatever culture they're growing in, right? Therefore, you can sometimes see an area. Sometimes, of course, it's a mix between the leaders abusing the kids, beside of brainwashing, also abusing them sexual or even slavery, right? So you can sometimes maybe see many kids growing up in the same area, all of them kidnapped, some of them abused, and some of them enslaved in brainwash, or some of them enslaved by doing different things that the older person think they should do, working, maybe doing something for younger children and so on, right? Then you also have the more, you could say, fatal kidnapping, where a warlord, for example, we have seen example in Africa with bigger adoption of many girls, many boys for child soldiers. And that's because it's probably not as much as the soldiers will be good soldiers. Of course, if they don't have any, then they will abuse them. But often it's blackmail, right? It's torture of the families of the country they're stolen from. Often, I think the girls are sold in a trade of drugs to prostitution around the globe, right? So actually, I reckon that some of the Africa stolen children might end up in the streets in UK or in United States as prostituted in some years, right? They might even be found there. So actually, I think like most people think that kidnappers are some kind of lonely, strange, crazy person. That's actually few of them. That's like Natasha Campos, Prickly or Fritzl, right? The more, and the very, very most of these people, and that's why there's not much. If you look into missing person cases, right? I'll show you some of them. Okay, let's see here, right? Isn't it a bit strange that there's thousands of missing person, right? Thousands, and there's very little interest from the media, right? Very little. It's almost scary little information, right? Could that be maybe that's because that it's not so uncommon, this kind of thing, you know? It's not that people don't know about this kind of black abduction and stuff like that, you know? I think that there's a lot going on that people, you know, knows about, you know. Okay, I think that the government is. This is actually a Danish young man. He might be spotted in the West Coast, right? Right. I think that the interest in this field is very, very strange low. And the strange thing is that the media and the authorities really want to let us know that this is, you know, really, really serious problem, and you know they write about Maddie all the time, right? But there is thousands out there. I'm actually glad that they write so much about Maddie because that all breaks the ice. I'm also glad that there's a discussion in the Catholic Church about pedophilia. I'm glad that Hollywood now begins to break the ice on abuse, rapes, and you know, gay rings and prostitution rings and abuse of young actors and stuff like that. That's the top of the ice, right? Epstein and so on. Under all this is the cases that you know is in the area, the cases where you wonder, this young man, he looks actually a bit like he was from, I don't know, he's not from here, right? Right? And that's the awareness that everybody should have in this, that the neighbor's boy, girl, woman even, could be kidnapped, right? The ways they keep, I'll talk about this later.